Hey, what is going on, Miami Dolphins fans? Welcome back to the Fins Up Network. It's Ben Morgan, and we are wrapping up Bills Week with my final preview and prediction video. And just like we did for the first 2 weeks of the season, gathered some viewer questions that relate to the Dolphins Bill game. And since I've got quite a few good ones to get through, once again, you guys really turned up and brought a lot of good questions. Hope to get through as many as possible before giving my final score prediction. So I want to jump right into those questions. But before we do, let's hear from you. Drop your final score predictions in the comments below. And if you haven't done so yet, make sure you are getting subscribed. Let's jump into the first question. It's what are 3 players or position matchups we should watch for? You get a little 3-for-1 action here. So I'm going to bust through these relatively quickly. But number one, I've got to go Stefon Diggs versus Xavien Howard, because right now Xavien Howard is essentially the only cornerback on our roster that I would trust covering Stefon Diggs on a regular basis. And I know Howard is dealing with that groin. He's listed as questionable, but if he is healthy enough to go, I would imagine that he is going to be following Stefon Diggs all over the field. Number 2, I'm going to go with Von Miller against our tackles, Terron, Armstead, and Greg Little. Much like Xavien Howard, Terron Armstead is also listed as questionable. Don't believe he practiced at all this week, getting rested with that toe injury leading up to this Bills game. But man, Von has been getting it done. What seems like forever. Seems like this guy has been in the league and been dominating the league literally forever. And even at his age, looking fast, looking twitchy in his first year with the Bills. And look at this. Now, we've got some evidence after last week, and we've seen it in weeks before as well, that Tua can perform at a high level if he's given that little extra time. So containing Von Miller, their best pass rusher, is going to be huge. And number 3, I'm going to go with a combination of Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert. And since I'm actually going to talk about those two pertaining to another question, I'm just going to let that one sit there for a little bit, give a little bit of a tease. But let's jump into the second question. Who makes a bigger impact, Stefon Diggs or Tyreek Hill? And this one is tough since obviously we're talking about the cream of the crop, the top offensive player on each team. Offenses that both rank in the top 3 right now in regards to total yards. Unfortunately, I'm going to give Stefon Diggs the slight advantage in this particular question, though, because Tyreek does account for a lot of our offense, but not quite the amount that Stefon Diggs does for Buffalo. I talked about that in one of the other preview videos earlier this week. So I honestly think that the Dolphins a little bit have more of a luxury than the Bills right now of spreading it out to whether it's Jaylen Waddle or the running backs or Mike Gesicki if his usage is bumped up again this week. But even though it looks like Gabe Davis will likely return this Sunday for the game for the Bills, I still think Josh Allen and the Bills rely on Diggs heavily, more than the Dolphins are really forced to rely on Tyreek Hill, giving Stefon Diggs the extra opportunities to make more of an impact. Next question, if the Miami Dolphins win, who will be the player of the game? So I'll give you a player, but my real answer, I'm actually going to cheat a little bit because my player is Xavien Howard. I talked about him with Stefon Diggs. I think he has the toughest task of the day on Sunday, likely trailing Stefon Diggs. But my honest answer is a coach, and it's defensive coordinator Josh Boyer. Because not only does, yes, Howard has to have a great game, but Josh Boyer is going to have to call a jam if Miami is going to get this win. So compared to last week, we're going to need to see improvement in the pass rush. We have to keep Josh Allen contained to the pocket. Been stressing it all week because not only can he have the athleticism to do damage with his legs, but when he's outside of the pocket, the arm strength, the arm talent that this guy has to create off-script plays, it's him and Mahomes. Like Rodgers, there's a couple of quarterbacks, but man, he is one of them. And what that means, if he's moving around back there, that's just more time that your defensive backs need to hang with these wide receivers. So you definitely got to contain him. Just in general, I think you need to live with like the bend but don't break mentality this week. I don't think any defense in the entire league is going to shut down this Bills offense. But if you can force them to kick field goals, actually maybe get them to punt a few times. Remember earlier this week, we talked about it. They've punted a grand total of 3 times all year. So containing Josh Allen, that's really your only chance of taking down the best team in the NFL, at least for my money. Let's jump in and do another question. We'll scoot through these to get to the prediction. If an offensive player not named Tyreek Hill or Jaylen Waddle were to emerge this week, who do you think it'll be? All right, this is the one I teased earlier when talking about Edmonds and Mostert. But I think one of the ways that Miami can win this game is to run the ball, control the clock, try to limit the amount of time that Josh Allen and the Bills offense is simply on the field. So if that strategy goes into play and if it rings true, that would mean one or both of Edmonds and Mostert will likely have a little bit of a breakout game, especially compared to what we've seen from them so far, because they've both been fine. They haven't really had a terrible amount of running lanes to utilize so far this year. They haven't been called upon to do too much. They've combined for 125 rushing yards. And keep in mind, that includes a 28-yard carry from Chase Edmonds at the end of that game last week against the Ravens. But if Miami can get the ground game going, sort of control the tempo, control the time of possession, I think it would, end of the day, be the running backs that are the ones that could potentially emerge outside of the usual Waddle and Hill. Next question. I think it's time to move on from Jerome Baker. He's just not physical enough in the middle. Your thoughts? So I still think that the hope is the long-term solution potentially at the middle is Channing Tindall, that he can become that core player at linebacker for the Dolphins. And maybe at some point that means Baker can just play a little bit more on the outside. But yeah, I mean, Baker isn't your prototype physical, run-stopping, thumping linebacker. So I do think at this point in time, he's just playing a little bit more out of position more than anything. I actually like him as a player. Remember, he was more of a speed, athleticism type of linebacker coming out of Ohio State the way it was. He's sort of adapted to playing multiple positions since being in the NFL. But my upcoming last question also deals with Jerome Baker and the defense. So I'm going to kind of blend these together. And in this next question, there were a couple of ideas that blended into this final question. So I sort of paraphrased it for video purposes. But the question kind of boils down to, what's the best way to contain Josh Allen? Should we spy with Baker or Tindall? And honestly, if I can answer this successfully, I should give the secret code to all the defensive coordinators in the league, because over the last couple of years, we really haven't seen it happen. There's been a couple of teams that have slowed the Bills down, but I mean, look back to how they lost in the playoffs last year. It wasn't because of any defense. It was back and forth. You just simply had to outscore them. But I think, kind of like what we talked about earlier in the video and throughout the week, you got to apply pressure to Josh Allen while keeping him contained to the pocket. If we're not going to be sending out these like straight blitzes, if we're only rushing 4, in my opinion, you absolutely need to assign a guy to sort of spy and account for Josh Allen. A guy like Jerome Baker would make perfect sense since he has the speed, the athleticism to hang with Josh Allen. And I agree. Everyone's hope when we drafted Channing Tindall was that he would be our Josh Allen type of quarterbacks spy. He'd be the guy that would account for a guy like that. That felt like one of his biggest strengths coming out of Georgia. But we'll have to see first and foremost if he's going to make his NFL debut. He hasn't been active on game day yet. I know last week and earlier into this week, he was battling an illness. He was off the final injury report on Friday afternoon. So hopefully we see that debut sooner rather than later, because that spy role is literally one of the top things that we thought that he could contribute already in year 1. So with that, the time has come. I think I got through all the questions this week. And let's see. I did. So if I missed yours, I swear I totally apologize. I must have missed it. But go ahead and ask away next week as well. I will promise to get into it. But let's jump into the final score prediction. As you can see, this is my first time that the official prediction for this year's video, I've got the Dolphins on the wrong end of the final score. And I've sort of alluded to it throughout the week with my preview videos. But honestly, I think right now, for my money, the Buffalo Bills are the cream of the crop. They are the best team, not only in the AFC, but in the entire NFL. Now, do I think they can hang? Absolutely. I only have them losing by 2 points there. And we've got a lot of things going for us right now. We've got a home game with the Bills coming off of a short week. Remember, they played on last Monday night. And the Bills aren't exactly what you'd consider to be super healthy right now. Their health, that injury report, is one of the main reasons I almost flipped this. I almost gave the Dolphins the one possession win because they've got Micah Hyde out. Jordan Poyer is questionable. He's not 100%. So that's both of your safeties. Jordan Phillips from the interior is out. And they're starting 2 rookie cornerbacks. That's a recipe for disaster against the Dolphins. But I think they've got a lot of offense going for them. It's going to be a lot of back and forth. The other thing the Dolphins have going for them, though, is that confidence. Their confidence has to be through the roof right now. Last week's comeback win, the offensive outburst. But at the end of the day, I want to be as honest as possible, as unbiased as possible when I'm making these videos. So while, yes, I do think we have a chance to pull off that upset, I have to take the Bills this week. And look, we're not going undefeated. That just doesn't happen in today's NFL. It doesn't. It's happened one time in the entire NFL, essentially, outside of the Patriots and the Dolphins, obviously. We're going to take some lumps throughout the season, but hey, if you'd have told me in preseason that we would be 2-1 through 3 weeks, sign me up. Tell me where to sign. I would have taken that all day. And honestly, I hate losing. I will be in a terrible mood on Sunday afternoon if we lose, but keep the bigger picture in mind. I will not be set off into panic mode if things don't break our way Sunday against the Bills. So while I do think that we have a decent shot of pulling off the upset, I could see it being a 1-possession game either way. I'm going to give the Bills the slight advantage, unfortunately, this week. But hey, that is my preview prediction video for this week, but I want to hear your prediction as well. Drop those in the comments. But damn it, let's get this win. You can go ahead, do it for me. Just pick the Miami Dolphins to win. Let's get some fins up. Let's get some fins wins in there because there would be nothing that I would enjoy more than 3-0 alone at the top of the AFC East. So that is my time for today. I will check back in with you guys Sunday following the game for the recap and final takeaways. But that's my time, Dolphins fans. And until next time, fins up.